Happy Thanksgiving, everyone! Gobbler Getaway is the Thanksgiving-themed shooting dark ride at Holiday World in Santa Claus, Indiana. And this ride is zany. Most shooting dark rides have you blasting ghosts, aliens, robots, or some other villainous entity. On Gobbler Getaway, you're taking aim at turkeys. But don't worry, you're not murdering them. As Grandma tells you, the suspicious gun-shaped devices you're given aren't weapons. Rather, they're turkey collars. These devices tag turkeys, rounding them up for Thanksgiving. Now, the reason you're rounding up the turkeys is a bit unclear at first. Are you rounding them up for slaughter? Or are you rounding them up to save them from becoming someone else's Thanksgiving dinner? The answer is revealed at the end of the ride. Gobbler Getaway opened in 2006, the same year as the park's world-renowned Voyage wooden roller coaster. Gobbler Getaway, much like Voyage, was one of 3 rides that opened with the brand new Thanksgiving section of the park. And it filled a much-needed void in the park's lineup. It gave the park a delightful indoor dark ride. From the outside, the ride may not look special, but this ride does diversify the park's lineup, offer some coveted AC in the hot, humid Midwestern summers, and provide refuge during a passing thunderstorm. The latter is especially thankful since it's the park's lone indoor attraction, and I've had a major rainstorm play a role in almost every single one of my Holiday World visits. Gobbler Getaway is an interactive shooting dark ride from the Sally Corporation. Guests board 4-person vehicles called Turkey Trotters and compete to find out who can rack up the most points. Now, if there's one criticism I have with this ride, it's the use of 2D cutouts. This is a commonality on most Sally shooting dark rides, and honestly, it does make sense. Holiday World does not have the budget of a Walt Disney World or Universal Studios, so less complex targets are the compromise they need to make in order to afford a dark ride. The only animatronic you'll find is Grandma with her pet cat in the queue line. Just don't look at Granny's eyes or her cat's eyes for too long, or else you might get a little creeped out. Thankfully, Holiday World didn't let the cardboard cutouts hold them back. The park went all out with a consistent, cartoonish aesthetic from start to finish. This stylistic approach can't help but bring a smile to my face, especially when you see those goofy faces of the turkeys. And I also have been fortunate enough to have gotten a backstage tour of Gobbler Getaway. As part of their annual enthusiast event HoliWood Nights, Holiday World puts several experiential auctions up for bid. The last ride of the night in the Voyage usually garners the most interest, as well as the lift walk and track walks for Voyage. I have seen those auction items go for upwards of $200, possibly more. Meanwhile, I snagged the tour of Gobbler Getaway for the reasonable price of $25, and you could bring someone with you. I highly recommend it. This tour was quite affordable, and it was really neat to see the inner workings of a dark ride. That was especially true in the case of a shooting dark ride. Usually when I'm on one of these shooting dark rides, I'm so hyper-focused on hitting the targets that I sometimes fail to appreciate the ride's atmosphere. In fact, Holiday World actually recommends that guests ride Gobbler Getaway twice. Once without the guns, and once with the guns. That way they can get the best of both worlds. One ride to enjoy the atmosphere and detail of Autumn Falls, the fictional town where the ride takes place, and another to become a master turkey caller. So being able to leisurely stroll my way through Gobbler Getaway without collar in hand allowed me to appreciate the ride's aesthetic even more. I could appreciate some of the smaller details, the best of which was a shattered glass bottle in the kitchen scene. And this bottle looks so convincing that it actually has tricked some of Holiday World's staff into thinking it was an actual broken bottle needing to be cleaned up. These little anecdotes and stories about the ride were another really interesting and underrated aspect of the tour. I also got a tactical advantage, as I learned the location of a few additional targets I missed during the ride. Here's a hint, look up during the barn sequence. The only other dark ride I've ever gotten a backstage tour of was the Haunted Mansion at Knoebels, and I hope I can experience a few more in my travels. It was definitely different seeing a child-friendly shooter in this case as opposed to a horrifying haunt. Moving on to the ride itself, it was functionally flawless. These shooting dark rides can be ruined by broken targets or inaccurate guns. Neither of these have ever been an issue on Gobbler Getaway in all my visits to Holiday World. I always know exactly where I'm shooting, and every target seems to register. And as an added bonus, most targets react in some way. Furniture will open, or turkeys may pop out. And at the end of the ride, you learn you've been rescuing the turkeys, not rounding them up for slaughter. Thus, setting up a comical reveal at the end that 1785's Thanksgiving dinner will no longer be celebrated around a turkey dinner. No, it will be celebrated over pizza. And I guess this makes Autumn Falls the founding father of modern day pizza instead of Italy, considering the pizza we know today didn't arise until the 19th century by some accounts. And this leads into the final scene, an over-the-top celebration by the turkeys celebrating the sparing of their lives. They no longer need to fear Thanksgiving like it's the reaping for the Hunger Games. So the turkeys are all out celebrating and dancing. They even have a disco ball. This final room reminds me of that last room on Journey into Imagination with all the figments. It's that level of zaniness and just insanity with all the turkeys going over the top. Now, one last thing I could see bothering some would be the noise the turkey callers make. 3 straight minutes of non-stop, high-pitched gobbling can drive people up a wall in a similar manner to It's a Small World. Now, this personally doesn't bother me, but I know several people who are still haunted by that gobble to this day. Well, maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but not everyone enjoys that gobbling sound. And it was actually sort of creepy to get a backstage tour with the ride without this gobbling going on. I've grown so accustomed to it over the years that it was quite the contrast seeing the still silent turkeys coldly staring back at me. So what would I rate Gobbler Getaway? I would give this dark ride an 8 out of 10. Technically, it's not as advanced as the shooting dark rides you'll find at major corporate parks, and it doesn't have to be. This is a cut above most regional park shooting rides. The corny style works extremely well, especially considering the ride's lighthearted nature. But most importantly, the park's dedication to maintaining the guns, targets, and effects makes this an above-average shooting dark ride. There's nothing worse than riding a shooter when you can't actually shoot anything. And again, if you have an opportunity to take a tour of Gobbler Getaway at a HoliWood Nights, definitely place a bid for it. It is well worth it. So those are my thoughts about Gobbler Getaway. What are your thoughts about this attraction? Have you ridden it? I would love to hear your thoughts about the ride down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I'd appreciate if you gave the video a like and considered subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching, and I hope you and your family have a happy and safe Thanksgiving.